I have a fringe. I'm trying to train to come forwards, but I'm pretty sure you can still see where my hair wants to go into a centre parting. But yes, I have a fringe. Hello everybody, welcome back. If you have not been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. Say it with me, people. I read a lot of books. Today's book I did not realise was in a series until I got to the end of the book. It tells you that it works very well as a standalone, but it does make me want to go back and see if there's any underlying story to bring everything together. And it did kind of help me understand a little bit more when I got to the end and I realised it was part of a series. Now, this is book number 8. So yeah, but interestingly the main character doesn't actually come in until about a quarter of the way into the book. So yeah, it's The Mirror Man by Lars Kepler. Now Lars Kepler is actually a husband and wife team, kind of Nicky French style. So it's Alexandra Coelho Anderil. Apologies, my greatest apologies for my pronunciation. And Alexander I've just said it, Debs. Anderil. Alexandra and Alexander. Oh, apparently they're getting a new pseudonym, Alex Anderil, because they're both called Alex. Yeah, so this was book 8, and it's The Mirror Man. Your front cover. Having read it, I find the tagline very, very misleading. It says, if you see his reflection, it's already too late. It's a tagline based on the title of the book. The title of the book does make sense when you get to the end of it, but the tagline about the reflection doesn't really make much sense knowing what happens. Let's just get in with that blurb for you. 5 years ago, Jenny Lind was abducted on her way home from school. Now, her lifeless body is found hanging in a playground, but there is no evidence and only one witness, a man who cannot remember what he saw. With Detective Joona Linna and the police scrambling to find a lead, another girl goes missing. And as they close in on the killer, they discover that the Mirror Man's crimes are more shocking than they ever could have imagined. So yeah, it's 230 pages on ebook. It's in crime and thriller, police drama and forensics, general and psychological fiction. Based on how dark and kind of graphic it can be, I feel like it could settle into horror. Like, if this was ever adapted into a television episode or a film, it's very graphic at times. And, yeah. So, Detective Joona Linna, this is supposed to be his series. Nowhere does it actually say it's part of a series in the information about it. It was only at the end of the book, as I said, when it gave information about the authors and the rest of the series, that I actually realised it was part of a series, and also made me realise that the very end of the book could be carried on, because I had to reread like the final page a couple of times because it was just like, oh, what does this mean? And now I realise that it's something that might be carried over into book 9 to cover Joona's story. But yeah, at the beginning of the book, it starts off with when Jenny first disappeared, and then it cuts to 5 years later, where you meet a couple where the husband has very severe PTSD to the point where he hallucinates essentially the ghosts of his dead siblings. You find out that there was an accident that killed his family and he was the only survivor, and so that has obviously affected him into adulthood to the point where he doesn't actually speak anymore, and so his wife is dealing with things. She has somebody in her life that isn't her husband, that she has a interesting relationship with. She treads murky waters. She kind of crosses the line a little bit, considering the fact that she is married and she does love her husband, but we're also aware that her relationship with her husband has never been the same since her own daughter died. Part of his PTSD, as well as losing his family, was that he went out ice fishing with their daughter, and they thought it was really thick ice, ended up somehow in a place where the ice wasn't as thick. He went through almost died when he was rescued, the daughter Alice was nowhere to be found. She's assumed dead because they couldn't find her. It's very, very sad. As I said, like the first chapter, or the first couple of chapters, I think, covers Jenny 5 years before, kind of giving a bit of an explanation as to Jenny's personality leading up to her being kidnapped, and looks a little bit at her in captivity, and then it jumps forwards to when you meet Pamela and Martin, and you see Pamela remembering Alice. It's basically, well, Alice goes missing at the same time that Jenny does, and then it cuts to 5 years later when they're dealing with the effects of that, and then a body turns up at this playground, and they find out that it's Jenny, and she has been hooked up in a very horrible, gruesome way to, like, the jungle gym, I think it is, and she is hung. You see the moment when somebody actually finds her in the playground, and they see a twitch, and they think that Jenny is still alive, so they go over and kind of hold her up, trying to kind of see if Jenny's able to, like, free herself or loosen it or things, and at that point she's not actually aware that Jenny is already dead, and what she saw was an involuntary spasm after Jenny has died. At that point they don't know it's Jenny. It's later found out that it's Jenny, but you see this woman who found her looking into the eyes of a homeless woman and saying, help me, and the homeless woman doesn't do anything. I've got so much going through my head because I finished this yesterday. I finished this last night in bed, and oh my goodness, it is very dark. It is very disturbing. It is very gruesome. So if you're like me and if you've got quite an active imagination when it comes to things that are very graphic, I wouldn't recommend this book, because I did have to put it down at points just to get certain images out of my head, which is why I say that I think it lends itself to kind of the horror genre. The horror, I can't even say the word genre. That's a hard word to say when you're trying to concentrate. Yeah, that's why I think it lends itself to the horror genre as well. There are a few moments in there where it's just like, was this necessary? Was this really necessary? Obviously, a lot happens before Detective Joona actually enters the picture. And when he does, he's just like, let's pull all the CCTV, let's see if there's anything that we can get, anything that might pick up, anything happening in the playground, anybody walking past, the homeless woman that the woman who found Jenny claims that she saw. They ultimately realise that the homeless woman that was described, it didn't look like she would have seen anything from where she was. And then they also find footage of a man walking his dog. And this happens at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and they're just like, we need to find this man. And the man is Martin, Pamela's husband, who, after being at kind of an institute to help him with his PTSD, he's been allowed home. And so he realises in the middle of the night, he feels an urge to walk his dog and get out of the house, which for somebody with PTSD, you just think, just do what you need to do. But yeah, so he is found on the CCTV looking towards where Jenny died. And so, yeah, Joona is on a mission, basically, to find out what happened. Through stuff that I don't know from previous books, he technically should not be working this case, but he is anyway. And I don't know if maybe the Joona Linna story is hinted upon in previous books, because he knows who Jenny is pretty much straight away, even without genetic testing. Like, he looks at, I think it's the pictures, was he there? I can't remember, but he looks at the crime scene and looks into the eyes and goes, it's Jenny Linna. Like, he knows straight away, as if it's like a case that's escaped him, and he was involved maybe in the initial disappearance of Jenny, and now it's come back, and he's just like, I didn't do enough the first time round, and this time I'm going to do more. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to read at certain points, especially when it comes to the description of how Jenny dies. It is not pretty. There's a winch involved attached to the park equipment, and yeah. But yeah, so when Joona needs to find Martin, basically the wife Pamela calls the police and says, I have reason to believe that my husband actually witnessed this, based on the fact that when Martin came home, he actually drew a picture of Jenny dying and the death scene. And when Pamela sees the pictures of the crime scene in the newspaper, she's going, oh my god, this is the image that my husband drew. And knowing his PTSD, she calls up and just says, look, I think my husband witnessed something. He suffers from extreme PTSD, but I want us to be able to help you. Unfortunately, the police get it all wrong, and they barge into the house and arrest Martin. And Pamela's just there going, no, you can't do this, you know, he has extreme PTSD, he needs help, there needs to be a doctor present when you talk to him, and they just completely ignore her. They take him into a room where they somehow manage to get him to confess to this crime when he has absolutely no memory of anything, and it's put into his head the idea that he may have done it, and so he's just like, I can't remember everything, but if you're telling me that I did it, I'm just going to say I did. But yeah, so it's very... It is hard to read, but I did actually really enjoy it in a weird way, in spite of the really, really disturbing images that my brain was conjuring out of the descriptions. Yeah, I feel like I've been talking forever and I've barely scraped the surface of what happens in this book. But yeah, throughout the book you see Martin actually go under hypnosis to help him understand what he possibly saw or didn't see. Anytime he tries to recollect what happened there, he has absolutely no memory. When he goes under hypnosis, it's just darkness, it's just black. But it's after the hypnosis that he actually starts speaking more coherently. He starts speaking in full sentences, and Pamela's just there going, oh my god, this is like a miracle. Like, we've tapped into something here with his PTSD, with the fact that he is now talking. And so throughout the book, it's about the way that Martin is treated by the police in regards to his PTSD, how he's treated by the system in general, and then there's a turn in there which I feel like I should have seen coming, but I didn't. Especially with the title of it, I was trying to understand like the context of like the idea of a mirror man or a mirror involved, and there is a point when the police storm a house and there are mirrors in strange places, and I'm just there going, ooh, has this got something to do with the title? And then when I got to the end, it was just like, oh, this went in a completely different direction to where I thought it was, based on the little red herrings that were placed all the way through. But yeah, if this sounds interesting to you, I definitely recommend this book, and I definitely want to go back and find the first book of the series on BorrowBox. I don't think it has all of them here. The audiobooks on here start at book 4, that's books 4, 5 and 6. And then The Mirror Man is the only one which is just a book, is the only ebook. So I will have to go other places to track down books 1, 2 and 3. Books 4, 5 and 6 are all out within a few days of each other. But yeah, because it says book 5 will be out first, and then it'll be book 6, and then book 4 will be out. Like, it's just a bizarre thing. It's just like, if you're going to bring me in, at least have book 1 on there for me. But yeah, so I'm going to have to look elsewhere to find books 1 to 3 before then coming back for books 4, 5 and 6, and then tracking down book 7, because The Mirror Man is book 8, and this one was released May 22, so there might even be more since then. What's really hard to read about it is the fact that a lot of the time you are seeing from the victim's point of view. You are hearing the things that they are doing, you are witnessing the things they are seeing, and with the way that it is written in the present, it puts you with them. So it's just like, this is happening. And yeah, it's not very often I read books that are written like in the present like that. It is a very interesting way to do it, to put you actually in the story like that, where you feel like you're living it with them. At the beginning of the book, you also see Pamela is trying to, after the loss of her daughter, she's onto a point when she's just like, no, I want to foster or adopt. And you see her make a connection with a young girl called Mia, but then everything happened with Martin getting accused when he's actually a witness. And yeah, so just going through, it's like one thing after another for Pamela, especially with what's happening with Martin. And it was a full-on ride reading this book. As I said, I had to put it down at certain points just because my brain couldn't handle some of the images that were being conjured up. But it's very good. It's very dark. It's Sweden? Is it Swedish? Yeah, the couple live with their family in Sweden. I just love the fact they're both called Alex, Alexander and Alexandra, and then they've got their new pseudonym for writing under based on their actual names. So yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out on that. But the books here that I can see, book 4 is The Sandman, book 5 is Stalker, and book 6 is The Rabbit Hunter. So yeah, it's just going to be very interesting to go back to book 1 and find out kind of the origin story for Joona. And as I said, it's a testament to how I didn't realise that it was part of a series until I got to the end of it, because, as I said, Detective Joona Linna doesn't actually appear until about a quarter of the way through the book. So you're not just following Joona, you are following Jenny to begin with, and then you've got Pamela and Martin, and a little bit of the story with Alice when Martin goes through the ice, and then going on from there. But for the majority of it, you feel like you're seeing it from Pamela's point of view, with occasionally the detective coming in as well. Yeah, it just, because of the way it's written, it really does lend itself to just reading a standalone book. You don't really feel like you're missing anything, even though there are references to Joona's relationship with his daughter, I think it is. And it feels like the natural getting to know of a character just through any book. Like, there's always going to be some backstory that you need to learn. It just felt like that reading in the context of this book. But yeah, so it's very dark. It's very graphic. I will do a bit of a trigger warning for obviously loss and bereavement, and there is actually a section of this book that is set at a dogfight, and that is very difficult to read. I think I have seen comments on Goodreads saying that section didn't necessarily need to be there, like it could have been set anywhere, like why choose a dogfight? And I think it's probably to add to another layer of darkness and just how horrible those people actually are. Was it necessary? Probably not, but they chose to include it for a reason. That's all I can say about that. I don't know if it's maybe a culture thing, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it at that. As I said, I do think that the tagline, if you see his reflection, it's already too late, that tagline is a red herring for me. But I did think it was very clever. And the fact that it's a trope that has been done before, I'll just say that, but because of the way it was done, it was never considered a possibility in my brain. I don't know why, but it was something to do with the way it was written, where the actual answer never crossed my mind. So when it did come out, and it was just like, okay, I need to go back and reread everything now. So, The Mirror Man, Lars Kepler, the Alexes. There's your front cover of the book. So, as I said, it's detective, it's murder, it's graphic, it's got that element of horror. So if you like the sound of that, I think you'll enjoy this. But just be prepared for those graphic moments, because I did have to have a break at certain points. It reminds me of when I read the Goosebumps books as a kid, and then to get certain images out of my mind, I'd put the football on, or the 24-hour live feed of Big Brother, and we'll just watch people sleep just to get certain images out of my head. That was for Goosebumps when I was a kid. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Just a huge heart to all the new subscribers. The number just seemed to go up quite quickly with a few of my shorts. I realised that my shorts are very different from my videos, because the sketches are based on things that happen to me at work, and I don't talk about my work very often. I am a massage therapist, by the way, if you hadn't clocked that. But yeah, it was just based on one sketch idea, and then it just went on from that. And then I had friends at work say, you know, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I remember one comment from my mate Tanya at work, and it was just like, Tanya, I cannot do that. Like, we can talk about it, but I cannot actually make that into a video. So I take ideas from other people and make it a bit more universal. Because some things would just be a bit too much. But thank you, Tanya, for the suggestions. And I did actually upload one which was based on one of Tanya's suggestions today, which was the first appearance of The Fringe on my YouTube channel. But yeah, so thank you so much. I will see you next time with another video. Stay safe, lots of love, and did I say it yet? Don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already. Stay safe, everybody. Love you all. Goodbye.